Hello, welcome to the stream. This is Psycho Metal, or I'm Psycho Metal rather. Hope you're having a good day, night, weekend, whatever. And yeah. So in this particular stream, I'm going to be going over how I and what I've observed other artists do their inking, as far as doing their line work with inking tools and so on, but also going over how to do it in Krita specifically. Now, that's not to say that the way I'm going to explain it in this stream is the only way to do any sort of inking for comics, animations, or even just illustrations. But this is pretty much how I do it and what I've learned how other artists do as well. So just gonna go ahead and get started. Something I want to try doing this stream is that I want to start listing the different points at which I go over certain topics or techniques within these educational streams. So text, do checklists, all this, yeah, this, and basically first thing I'm going to put down is, let's see, how do I want to start this? I guess we'll go over the brush that I use, since that's probably what most people are going to be wanting to know offhand, because obviously without the tool, then, or the brush rather, then you can't actually do the line work. So let's go over that first. Change this to cyan, and we'll just leave it as that. Now I'll put brushes because I want to be specific. So yeah, I just want to go ahead and go over this real quick. Actually, let's do. Go. Brushes. Okay. So that's the first thing I'm going to go over. So let's go ahead and get that started. And you can ignore what I've already got on the canvas for now, because I was just trying to get something started and I'd do a little warm up before stream. So just go ahead and ignore this for now. Okay, so what are the brushes that I personally use for inking? Actually, let's go over what inking is first, in case if anyone's new. Digital art or just drawing in general want to know. So inking is basically, let me just do it in text box. So inking is the, let's see, application of black, because it's usually black is the color that's usually used for inking. Application of black lines. Now let's put line work. Inking is application of black line work over sketches and construction lines. Okay, let's big get there we go. And let's Okay, so this is basically what inking is. It's going over in another layer. So for example, if I, well, let's just read this out first. Inking is the application of black line work over sketches and construction lines. So what do I mean by that? Let's open up, assuming I can anyways. Okay. So assume that these 3 different size circles are construction lines for some sort of illustration, right? Regardless of what the, my bad, it touched the wall. Regardless of what object, character, person, location, etc., whatever physical thing that I'm constructing with these circles, regardless of that, I'm going to first draw these circles using usually some sort of pencil like brush, and you don't necessarily have to use the same ones that I use, but this is the one I personally use. This is my, and let me zoom in a little bit more so you can actually see the texture of it. This is pretty much my pencil like, or pencil brush that I made. Let me do this in a separate layer. And you can see that it's got a grainy texture to it, but unlike the default pencil brushes that Krita has, so if I go to the sketch menu, oh, not sketch, in digital, hold on, stunning. That was in sketch. Oh, it is in sketch. I see it now. Okay, I must have clicked the wrong box, my bad. So if I go to, and you can't see it because for some reason OBS does not keep track of these drop down boxes, but essentially, actually I can open up a separate Docker for this. Let me do that instead. So Dockers, brushes, brush presets, here we go. Open it up a little bigger. Now I'm probably gonna have to open this up a little bit. Sorry, make this visible in OBS. So second, window capture, and then we're gonna, okay, never mind, that's not working. How did I do it before? Is that it? Okay, there we go. That's how I did it. Weird, but okay. That'll still work. Okay, so wait, no, it's still not showing it. What? All right, hold on. For some reason, it'll show when, if it's a Docker, but it won't show it if it's a separate box or drop-down menu. And let me take this off. There we go. Okay, so you should be able to see it now. So if I go to brush presets, go to, again, for some reason it doesn't show drop-down menu, that's okay. Go to sketch. So these are all the pencil-like and charcoal-like brushes that Krita has to offer. By default, these are the default brushes. So you can use any of these default ones, and that's not really a problem, but I just didn't like a lot of them because either, for example, the one I'm using right now changes opacity based on how hard or soft I press. And yes, I understand that's realistic when you're using a real pencil on a piece of paper, but I don't really want the opacity to change just because, one, I just want to get the line work consistently done. I want to be able to see all the line work on top of that. So if I try drawing a circle, I don't want part of the circle to be transparent while the other half of the circle is opaque. I just don't have a need for that. Let's see. This one's even worse. Look at this. And I mean, when I say worse, that doesn't mean the brush is bad. It means that I just don't like the change in opacity setting. And let's try one more. So this is a charcoal like brush. So if you want to do more like charcoal drawings and so on, but yeah, of course in digital art in Krita, then you would choose some of these brushes, and they got the grainy texture that I like. That's fine. But again, though, I don't want the opacity to change. I don't want this effect where I'm going over and going over several layers of the same brush, right? Like this, and it keeps getting darker or opaque. I don't want that. So I made my own brush, and pretty much I took one of these RGBA brushes, right? I took this one specifically, and I just changed these settings so that favorites, and I don't know if it's going to show up if I do this. So this brush editor coming up. Here we go. Brush editor. All right, you should be able to see this now. Is it capturing my mouse? Yeah, it doesn't look like it. Hold on. Okay, it is now. Okay, I don't know why I wasn't capturing the mouse earlier. Okay, so I took this RGBA brush, went to the settings. I made sure to go to opacity, this setting right here, and turn it off by checking this box. And turned the size setting off as well, because I don't need it to be thinner or thicker. I don't need the line work to taper off or on. Don't need all that. I just want a consistent line when I use this brush, but I still want this grainy texture. So go and take one of the this specific mask right here, and I get this grainy texture that I like, that the other sketch brushes have. And then I did something to change the I did something to change the color. Don't remember. Turn it back. Oh, I didn't do anything actually. All I did was just make it small. So if I zoom in, yeah. Well, it still does that thing where it still overlap when the brush work overlaps, it still gets darker, but that's okay. For the most part though, as long as I can use this brush, get a consistent color, size, and so on, then this is how I treat my brush. This is how I treat my sketching for line work. Now, of course, you don't have to necessarily use the specific brush that I made. You don't necessarily have to use any specific brush. It's up to you. You can use any of these sketch brushes. But anyways, going back to inking. So these are the specific brushes, default brushes that Krita has for inking. And again, you can use any of these. I used to use this G pen brush quite a lot back then, or a few years ago, because it essentially had all the settings that I wanted already checked off. You know, as far as, let me go back, let me finish 1 point at a time. So this pen basically does everything that I want it to do. You can see that the lines taper as I start and stop, you know, start drawing a line and stop drawing a line. So it tapers on both ends. The harder I press, the thicker the line becomes. And of course, the lighter I press down, the thinner the line becomes, and so on and so forth. So it pretty much did everything that I wanted a inking brush to do, and so on. So if you want a default brush without messing with any of the brush settings, and you just want to go ahead and get started working on your inking skills, this is the brush I recommend using. And let me see if I can pull it up. And here. So again, these are all default brush settings. I didn't change any of these, but this is basically what it has. So the brush size is pretty small. You can change this, of course, however way you want to, angle and so on. Size setting is by default turned on, and texture itself is also on, although I don't see this being necessary to have on, but whatever. Flow is off, opacity is off, so on and so forth. And that's one thing that I will say right now. You know, you've got a brush that's used for inking, or rather, you know, you made a brush for inking when the opacity setting is turned off. You don't want it to somehow turn opaque to transparent and transparent to opaque. You don't want the brush to do that when you're inking. You can if you want to, that's up to you, but I don't ever see artists doing it. Digital artists anyways. The reason why the line looks like it's turning transparent over on this end of this line and this line is because the thickness or this end of the line is really thin, whereas this end of the line towards the end is really thick. So the more pixels that you cover with the brush, right, like this, see, I'm adding more and more black pixels. The thicker, the more opaque the line looks. And of course, if I press down hard at the very beginning of the line, then just avoids that transparent look. So that's all that is. And of course, if I go to the brush size and increase it, there we go. Now it doesn't look as transparent as it did earlier. So anyways, this isn't really a tutorial on how to make brushes, but I'm just showing the reasons why brushes are used for inking, because basically the settings for the brush allow it to be used solely for inking. And those are specific settings for brushes that are used for inking have. Anyways, let's move on. So let's see. Like I said, you can use that one if you want to, and I guess for the sake of simplicity, I think I will use this brush. Okay, so you got your brush for inking. Now what? So you gotta obviously make something to go over with your inking brush. So in this case, I'm going to go over these 3 circles. Okay. It could be anything. It could be a sketch of a character. It could be viewpoint, perspective, location. Doesn't really matter. But you want to make sure that after you get done doing your pencil layer or sketch layer or whatever you want to call it, make sure you make another layer on top of it so that you don't accidentally do this, go over the same pencil line work with your inking brush, and then unfortunately you got no way to erase, because if you do start erasing, you'll erase the pencil work as well, and you don't want that. So make sure you use a separate layer for your inking, and let's label these layers real quick. Oops, sorry. Pencil, ink. Pretty much that's how I label my layers whenever I'm doing line work with inking and pencil work, or sorry, using a pencil sketch. I always do the pencil sketch first and I just label it pencil. Then the inking layer, I just label it ink. That's it. I just keep it really simple, because chances are I'm not going to make several layers just for the inking. I'm just not going to do that. Oh, my bad. Okay, I am so sorry. Apparently I left that on, so you totally did not see doing here. Basically, I was demonstrating that if you were to use the inking brush on the same layer that you did the pencil sketch, this, and then you went to erase the inking that you did because you made a mistake or something, you also erase the pencil sketch as well. So you want to keep them separated, and it's pretty easy to do that regardless of how many layers you have for your pencil sketch. As long as you have a separate layer for your inking, then that's all that matters. And in my experience, I only ever use one layer for inking. It's very specific situation. There's very specific situations where I'll use more than one layer for inking, but generally speaking, I only use one layer for inking most of the time. So just get into the habit of using a separate layer for inking. Okay, so you got your brush, you got your sketch, you made a separate layer for your inking, but you got your ink layer made. Got them labeled so you don't get confused on which one you're doing. Okay, now how do you actually apply the brush to go over your sketch? Well, you could do it free-handed if you want to. So you could leave the stabilizers off and just go ham, right, like this. Undo, go over it again, undo, and just keep trying and trying and trying until eventually you'll get close enough or exactly go over the lines that you did in pencil. You could do it that way, but I mean, that takes way too long, and on top of that, it gets really tedious and tiresome after a while. So to make this easier, you got two different stabilizers in Krita. And let me go ahead and explain what a stabilizer is. Basically, a stabilizer is just a feature you can turn on or off that allows Krita, by the software, to slow down the movement of the brush's cursor. So this little circle right here, this one right here, where the pixels change when I press down on my tablet pen, that's the cursor, right? And basically the stabilizer just makes this cursor move slower as I'm moving my pen around my tablet. So let me demonstrate that. So if you want to turn the stabilizer on with just a regular brush tool, right, this one right here, go into your tool options docker, under brush smoothing, By default, it'll be on basic, but if you want the stabilizer to turn on, change this drop down menu to stabilizer. Okay, and let me drop this down. Actually, I don't need this anymore. Let's take that out. Whoa, what happened? I think I exited out of that. Hold on. Dockers. Option. Oh, it's there. For some reason I can't find it. Oh, there it is. Okay, I see it now. Above. There we go. Okay, so I changed the brush smoothing setting to stabilizer. And this is what you would change to, or these are the settings that go along with the stabilizer. So for the most part, you could just leave this on and leave the default settings on, and now you'll see an outer circle around your cursor, right? Regardless how closely you zoom in or out, that circle is always going to be around your cursor. So what is this for? If you were to start drawing lines, you could see that that bigger circle follows your cursor around, and basically this is like a dead zone for your cursor. The smaller little circle you see, that's where my tablet pen is actually located on the canvas, right? So the cursor is basically trying to follow that smaller circle, and the cursor of the brush only moves if that smaller circle moves past this bigger circle. And let me see if I can zoom in a little bit more so you can see it. There we go. Well, actually, that's what I thought. So regardless of how closely you zoom or not, it always stays the same size, but nonetheless though, notice that this smaller circle, as long as I don't move outside this bigger circle, the cursor is not going to do anything. It's not going to draw a line, it's not going to draw a little dot, nothing happens. But as soon as I start to move it past the bigger circle, that's when the cursor starts moving and starts drawing a line. Okay, so that's how this stabilizer works. Now the delay pretty much changes the size of the dead zone, in which case it makes this bigger circle even bigger. So now I have to move my tablet pen a lot further away from the bigger circle just to start drawing a line. So if you don't want to accidentally draw a bunch of dots because you're stopping and starting on separate locations of your composition, so if I start here, I want to draw a line, I mean a circle, then I could do it that way. But if I want to, okay, if I want to have this big delay ring around the cursor, basically the reason why I have it like that is because I start here, stop here, and then I start here and then try to finish the rest of the circle. Stop there, start here. So if you're just doing a bunch of starting and stopping, then you don't have to worry about drawing little tiny dots like this. So that's the reason why you want a bigger dead zone or delay ring, whatever you want to call it. The sample count, I believe, is just showing how I want to say it determines the speed or the weight in which it feels when you're dragging the cursor around like this. So if I lower this down, you can see that the cursor is almost moving at just as fast as the smaller little circle. So it's basically moving about as fast as I'm moving my tablet pen. But higher this sample count number is, slower the cursor moves. And it allows me to move my tablet pen in better position before the line actually gets drawn. So if I try applying it to this circle, that circle wasn't perfect, but it looks a lot better. Well, that circle is nearly perfect. I just gave up towards the end. Go. And that's a pretty decent circle, most part. So if you just want to add a little extra time before the cursor actually starts moving, and thus give you a little more assistance as far as how clean the line looks and how well you can draw these curves or circles, then that's why you would change the sample count. But again, you can leave it on its default setting. I think this is 50, I'm 20. All right, so that's again one way to use stabilizers to help you do your line work. Okay, and basically the stabilizers just allow you to draw cleaner lines. So instead of doing this, right, because you don't have a whole lot of confidence in your hand, or you don't have your hand is not very experienced with drawing straight lines or clean lines or whatever, or if you're just not using your shoulder like a lot of artists should be doing when they're drawing, either because you can't or you don't know how, then you can use the stabilizers for that. Oops, sorry. There we go. So without stabilizer, with stabilizer. Okay, so there's a difference. Do you have to use a stabilizer when you're inking? No, you don't, but it just helps. Eventually, though, you'll get enough experience inking to the point where you don't even need a stabilizer anymore, where you'll just make just as good work with the stabilizer as well as without it. So you can see that without the stabilizer, I can still get a clean looking circle. Not a perfect circle, mind you, but at least a line doesn't look all like this, squiggly and such. It doesn't look like that. And that's just because I've been inking enough times to have enough confidence when it comes to drawing lines with this inking brush, or any other inking brush for that matter. It's pretty much, if you want an analogy or a comparison to traditional physical art making tools, it'd be like going over a pencil drawing or sketch with a pen, black pen. So, and of course, if you're using a black pen, there's no way to erase any of that ink, right? So you have to be confident in your ability to draw clean lines. Otherwise, it's going to be pretty obvious that you can't control the pen very well. All right, so that's one way to use a stabilizer. Now here's the other stabilizer tool that Krita offers, and that is the dynamic brush tool right here. Okay. So what is the dynamic brush tool? Basically, it's like a regular brush tool that already has its stabilizer setting turned on by default. And there's no way to turn it off either. Okay. Now, just like with the stabilizer for the regular brush setting, if I were to start drawing with this tool, I get pretty clean looking lines, right? Confident looking lines. Now, these two settings right here are similar to the stabilizer settings for the regular brush. So, if I remember correctly, the drag setting determines how fast and slow the cursor moves. for the brush. So if I crank it up high, it moves very slowly. I'm moving my tablet pen way faster than this cursor is moving. But you can see that the line looks really clean. There's no squiggles, there's no wiggles, no nothing like that. Now if I crank it down all the way to 0, there's no real drag with it, but at the same time though, it doesn't seem to mimic my... It doesn't mimic my the motion of my tablet pen anymore. Straight up, if I just move in a straight line like this, it just starts to automatically draw ellipses like that. Which could be pretty useful if you want to draw an ellipse automatically without having to use this circle tool. Up to you. See, I didn't even do that. Straight up, all I did was just right here, stop here, and then it just automatically draws the ellipse for me. So that's cool, but yeah, again, not really what I'm using this for. But I tend to keep it on the lower side, so that way I can start and stop like this. That is really cool though. I didn't know I could do this before. So if you just stop, then it starts to draw the spiral-like motion for you. Alright, more and more stuff. I don't know if that's intentional or not, but that's so cool. Alright, now the mass is just basically going to determine I believe it... What does the mass do? Because I'm going to be honest, I don't think I've ever figured this one out. Oh, that's what it does. So why is it called mass again? Anyways. Alright, well, now I remember. So basically, the mass setting just determines how much the stabilizer assists you. So if you don't want any help at all, crank it down to 0, and yeah, you could just draw a bunch of squiggly lines like this. As if you weren't using this tool at all. Crank it up to max, and then it basically keeps your lines very, very clean. But when you crank it up that high though, you will notice that there seems to be a little lag with the cursor's movement in respect to where you're moving your tablet pen. So I usually just leave it somewhere in the middle. And personally for me, I usually leave mass somewhere in the middle, so I get some assistance out of it, but not enough so that basically the tablet pen is just doing all the work for me. Not like it can anyways. And the drag, of course, I leave somewhere between 0.25 and... Oops, bad. Yeah, my fault. Gotta remember not to use the numpad. Alright, so those are two settings for the dynamic brush tool. My bad, I smacked the mic again. Alright, so that's pretty much it as far as the stabilizers for any brush that you use for inking. Right, so if you're not really confident in drawing straight lines and your lines look more like this, something like that, then you could just turn on the stabilizers to help you out. And unlike the dynamic brush tool, you don't have any circles surrounding the cursor to show you exactly where the cursor is being dragged to. So just to show, let you know. Yeah. All right. And change to 125. I had it the other way around. My bad. There we go. So that's usually the settings that I leave mine on for dynamic brush setting. I used to use the regular brush with its stabilizer setting on in the past, but I'm starting to just use this dynamic brush tool a lot more now. One, because I don't really care for the sensor or the dead zone being displayed through the outer ring and the inner ring. It just gets a little distracting. And on top of that though, you have to go through a separate drop down box and mess with more settings with the regular brush setting or brush tool, my bad. Whereas the dynamic brush tool, you only have 2 parameters to change, and they're already turned on by default, and there's no way to turn them off besides just turn them to 0. So up to you. Okay, so making sure my mic audio is on. Okay, cool. All right, so those are the stabilizers, right? So we went over brushes. Turn this on. So we went over brushes, and then we went over stabilizers. Assuming I can type. Go. There we go. So we went over brushes and stabilizers. Now, we also went over different layers. So the separation of layers. Layers. So brushes, stabilizers, separation of layers. Let's think. Is there anything else that go over? Not really. There's not really a whole lot to inking besides that. It's just mostly those 3 settings and tools that you have to think about when you're doing your line work, or inking line work anyway. Okay, so now that we're done with that, now how to actually take what you take the tools and apply it to the actual inking process. So when it comes to inking, yes, you can turn on the stabilizers all you want to. You can crank those settings up as much as you can, but all you're really doing is making the software compensate for your lack of eye-to-hand coordination and your lack of control when it comes to your hand and arm movement. So what are some things you can do to improve upon that? Well, in my personal experience, as boring as this may sound or seem, pretty much just going over simple shapes like these circles, rectangles, triangles, and so on, just for a few minutes a day for several days straight every week, really does help develop your eye-to-hand coordination, your steadiness with drawing lines, as well as the speed at which you draw these lines. So pretty much what what I used to do in the past is I would turn the stabilizer on and then just go like this pretty much for 5 to 10 minutes a day for several days straight. Sometimes I would spend every day in a whole week just doing nothing but this. So I'll do about 5 to 10 attempts with one shape. That's 4, 5, 6, and again, I'm just trying to draw as closely or as perfectly to the shape as possible. I think that's 8 now, 9, 10. Then move on to this smaller circle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I will try to move my hand a little slower if I need to. That's 6, 7, 8. But generally speaking, when you're doing line work and you're just drawing in general, speed actually does help. If you draw a line really fast, you don't have the opportunity to draw squiggles like this. Instead, when you're dragging your hand across your tablet really fast, it causes your hand to move in a much more straight path. So that's why you'll see a lot of physical comic artists, graphic designers, and so on just drawing like that. So let's see, this is my 4th attempt, I think. 5th, 6th, 7th, and now I'm using more speed. 8th, 9th, 10th, and you can see that I'm getting a lot closer to drawing a perfect circle in this shape. I mean, in this size rather, at this size. The faster I move my hand. But it's not a matter of just moving your hand though. You also want to put your whole shoulder into it as well. When it comes to doing that with a drawing tablet, what helps me make my arm move around a lot more rather than just keeping it stationary is zooming in and out. So if I have a small shape like this really small circle compared to these other two, right? This small circle, and I want to go over this in black ink, quote unquote black ink, or black inking brush. But at the same time though, I don't necessarily just want to do this with just my hand, right? I want to put my shoulder into it as well. Then I'm going to zoom in as closely as I need to. I'm not going to zoom in all the way through over here if I don't need to, right? That's ridiculous. But I'm going to zoom in a little bit more, so that way I can actually move my arm around. And on top of that, I'm not using the whole surface area at this distance, right, away from the circle. I'm not having to just force myself to use only my hand to draw a circle, because I just simply can't. The surface area required on my drawing tablet is way too small. So hence I'm gonna zoom in a little bit more. Usually if I have to draw little small details, ink small little details or shapes, I normally stick around 200 to 266%. I never go past that unless it's something ridiculously small. But in that case though, I'm probably just going to smudge over it anyways. So I'm at 200% now. Now I can actually use more of the surface area of my drawing tablet and use my shoulder. So that's my first attempt, second attempt, third attempt, fourth attempt, fifth attempt, sixth attempt, seventh attempt, eighth attempt, ninth attempt, 10th attempt. And that's it. That's literally all I do when it comes to improving my ability to draw perfect circles with an inking brush. Again, 10 to 20 attempts, 20 at most, for each size of circle And you don't just have to do circles, you can do ellipses as well if you want to. But in this case, I'm just doing circles. And usually I don't spend more than 10 to 20 minutes doing this a day. And the important thing to do when you're improving your eye-to-hand coordination and your arm movement for inking is that you want to do this consistently. So you don't have to do this daily per se. You can take a break, like a day or two break, come back and then do this drill again. But you want to consistently do this drill at least 2 to 3 times a week. And the more you do this, sleep on it, do it again the next time, the better your arm will move as far as, you know, doing this, drawing lines more confidently without all the squiggles. And you'll be able to draw these lines a little faster each time. Eventually you'll get to the point where you won't need the stabilizers anymore, and the lines that you draw with the stabilizers will look about exactly the same as without the stabilizers. So if I turn this off, pretty much my circles don't look that differently without the stabilizer on. Anyways, you get the point. Again, you don't have to just draw circles. I'd recommend drawing different shapes as well. So for this file, I have a bunch of perfect circles and I have some rectangles, vertical rectangles. So I'm going to use the dynamic brush tool again. And I'm just going to start with this first one. My first attempt, second attempt, third attempt, fourth attempt, fifth attempt, sixth attempt, seventh attempt, eighth attempt, and you can see that I'm starting to get better slowly the more attempts I do. That's my ninth attempt, 10th attempt. And this is something I would recommend too if you just want to do like a little warm-up before you start drawing. Again, it's only takes about a few minutes to do. It's not, you don't necessarily have to do just simple geometric shapes. You can go over something else like a reference image or something and just draw an outline of some person, character, object, whatever, and achieve the same results. You don't necessarily also have to do shapes. You can do straight lines, right? You can do this one line at a time. So oops, there's one line, 2 lines, 3 lines, 4 lines, and then go in the other direction. If I went clockwise, now I'm going to go counterclockwise. So that's 1 line, 2 lines, 3 lines, 4 lines. Okay, let's go clockwise again. 1 line, 2 line, 3 line, 4 lines. Go in the opposite direction, counterclockwise. 1 line, 2 line, 3 lines. Whoops. 3 lines, 4 lines. And again, you can do like C shapes, or sorry, C lines. So curved lines like this. You can also do S lines. Do it the opposite way. Whoops, opposite direction. You do I lines as well, or H lines. And so on and so forth. So those are the specific drills that I personally use when I'm trying to improve my, or was anyways, improving my eye-to-hand coordination and my ability to do inking more. That's my second attempt, third attempt, fourth attempt, fifth attempt, sixth attempt, and so on and so forth. You get the point. Okay, so that's pretty much the drills that I personally use when improving my line work, with or without stabilizers. And of course, if you want to challenge yourself, you can turn the stabilizers off by just using the regular brush tool, turn the stabilizer off, and then just do the same drills, just to prove how much better you've gotten with drawing lines and shapes smoothly and quickly. Okay, so let's go back to the checklist. Wonder, does this update in real time? It does not. Okay, just, oh, actually it does. Never mind. Drills. All right, so brushes, stabilizers, separation layers, drills. Okay. So we're going over those. Now here's some new things that I want to go over. So two more things I want to go over. Okay. So the first thing I want to go over is line weight. Now, how do you change the width, or thickness rather, of your line? Well, that really depends on the brush you're using, because that's related to the size setting. So if you go to your brush setting, go to the size setting, make sure it's turned on, of course, and these are the different curves at which will determine the relationship between how hard you're pressing down on your tablet pen and the thickness or thinness of the line. So for example, if I want to draw a thick line by barely tapping the tablet pen, and then the harder I press, it becomes thinner, like this, then you can do it that way. I never do, and it doesn't feel natural to do it that way, but you can if you want to. Normally I have it on this linear path, where the lighter I press on my tablet, the thinner the line becomes, and vice versa. The harder I press down, the thicker it becomes. I've also grown to like this curve a little bit more, because basically it makes it easier to keep thin lines from getting thick and thick lines from getting thin too quickly anyways. This, I mean, I try to make it work, but basically if you want to press down hard and then soft, you'll have the lines being shown. But if you don't press, if you use about a medium amount of strength, or pressure rather, if you don't press too hard or don't press too light, then the line barely shows up or gets drawn really. Vice versa with this. I mean, I thought this would be the easiest way, this curve anyways would be the easiest way to draw tapered lines, and to a certain extent it is, but not really. Because if you're not pressing down hard enough, or if you're not pressing down light enough, then you'll just end up with a consistent size or consistent thickness of your line work. In that case, you might as well just leave it like this, or just turn the setting off. This curve just makes it a little more difficult to draw thicker lines. So I personally don't use this curve on the size setting. And the same goes with this. I mean, you might as well not bother with this at all. Yeah. So, for the most part, I stick with this. If I were to start over and learning how to ink again, I'd start with this linear path. Use this path if this feels a lot more comfortable for you. But either or, don't bother with these other curves unless you just want to achieve some sort of specific effect. Okay. So this eye setting determines the line weight when you're inking, and this applies to when you're sketching as well with a pencil or charcoal like brush. But generally speaking, this is pretty much very important for inking. Now, why is that? Well, if you want to have line modulation or variation of your line work without really changing anything else as far as the brushes you use, the colors you're using, etc., then the simplest thing you could do is make some parts of your lines, some parts of your characters, portraits, objects, etc., like one half is thicker than the other. Let me give a concrete example. So this is an example over here. And let me turn this off. Let's also change the track as well. That's a little much. Hold on. Let's do this one. Oh, let's turn this one off as well. I gotta do a much better job of dealing with OBS's settings, because otherwise I'm not going to do a good job of showing what I'm doing on Krita. Okay, so move the mic a bit closer to my mouth. There we go. Okay, so as you can see, turn all these off. So if you take a look at this line, for example, it's thinner on this left end and thicker on this right end. If we take a look at this vertical line on this left side, right, of this character's face or head, thinner at the top, thicker at the bottom. And this helps direct the eye in a specific direction that you want them to look towards. So if I want the viewer to look at the bottom part of the head more than the top, then I can make these lines at the top of the head thinner than the ones at the bottom. And that's what I did. Also, it also implies distance as well. So you can imply depth to a composition by just simply having specific line weights. So that's line modulation. Now, how do you actually apply this? Again, make sure that the brush you're using for inking allows for changes in brush size. And then you just simply make sure that you press down harder as you draw the line. So that way, one part of the line looks thicker than the other. And this is a little more difficult to do when it comes to certain shapes of lines. So for example, a C line, right? That's how I would draw it normally if I didn't care about line width, line weight. But say if I want the end of this line here to be thicker than this one, I'd have to be pressing down harder as I'm drawing the line like that. And vice versa. If I want the line to be thicker on this end than this end, I would either have to draw it in the other direction, or press down hard initially and then let go. And that's a little bit more difficult for me to do. It's more natural for me to press down harder on my tablet pen as I'm drawing the line towards the end. If you want the line to be really thick in the middle, that's, in my personal opinion, the hardest thing to attempt, because you have to go soft or press lightly at the beginning of the line, press hard in the middle, and then go let up the pressure towards the end. I mean, you saw how difficult it was for me to do it that way. And for me, I'm still learning how to do that last part, is going thick and then letting up without it looking weird like that. Anyways, let's try applying it to an S curve. So an S curve, thin to thick, thick to thin, thin to thick to thin. And then of course, if you want to be weird about it, you can go thick to thin to thick. So it's up to you, but again though, how hard you press down on your tablet pen determines the thickness and thinness of your lines. Do you have to do this though for your line work? If you're just starting out, no, I wouldn't recommend learning to do this, because you're already having a hard time as it is working on the clean or how straight or clean the lines look, right? You don't want to add more difficulty by worrying about how thin and thick the lines are, as well as how clean they look. Especially since if you're using broad strokes like this, most of the time your lines are going to be thin at the beginning of the line and then thick either in the middle or at the end of the lines, like this. So again, you don't want to add all those concepts and techniques when you're at a beginner stage all at once. That's going to be too much work. It's going to be too tedious and all that. So, and how do you practice controlling the line weight when you're inking? I mean, that honestly just comes down to repetition, really. You just have to try to get a specific result. In this case, if I want to draw a number 3, but make the middle part of the 3 the thickest part, and then the other 2 ends the thinnest, then I just have to keep trying to press down as hard as I can towards the middle, and then let go of the pressure towards the end. And there's not really any way to make this easier. There's no stabilizer that will help you with that. There's no specific tool that I know of in Krita that'll do that for you. You just simply have to either mess with the size tablet pen setting in the brush editor in Krita, or just simply get good. And that's what it comes down to. I mean, it sounds harsh when I say it that way, but it's just true. Even I'm struggling to do this, and I've been, I mean, I'm a graduated art student that's been drawing and painting for a good long while. All right, so let's go back to the checklist. Also, let's change the track. Sounds good, but I should have edited it. There you go. All right, so let's see what else. Checklist. Turn this on. Line weight. Oh, I remember now. Something I also recently learned how to do. And let's make this a little smaller. There we go. Let's also turn this off so you can actually see it. There we go. So we went over brushes, stabilizers, separation of layers, drills. We're learning to ink and the line weight as far as how to apply it, and as well as practicing to do it. All right, one more thing that I want to go over as far as inking goes, or how you can modify your inking layer, is by changing the color of your line work, your inking line work, after you're finished doing the inking. So what do I mean by that? Well, remember I said that normally artists use black when they're doing inking, right? Whether it be an animation, comics, illustrations, etc. Normally black, because you know most pens are in black, right? Black color, anyways, black ink. Because artists use black most of the time when they're inking. If you look at most digital artists' works, if they have some sort of inking involved in their illustrations or comics or whatever, they've used black. But there are some artists that use different colors besides black. It'll either be analogous colors to their composition or some sort of complementary color. So what do I mean by that? Okay, so check it. If I turn this back on, all right, the pencil layer that I was working on for this little illustration. So I did the pencil layer in red, right? And I did the, let me turn this one off. There we go. And I did the inking in black. If for whatever reason I wanted to do the inking in some other color besides black and make it similar to the rest of the colors that I've got going on in the composition, say if I want to use orange, and this is how I would do it. Go into my color selector. There we go. Okay, now, so this is the layer, my ink layer, right? Let me just label it like that. Ink layer. I'm going to click on this checker box, right? This little checker box icon on the layer. That'll turn the alpha on, okay? For this specific layer where I've got the inking going on. Now, once I do that, I'm going to either use a brush, in which case I can use the same brush I'm using, and go over the black ink like this without putting orange on any other part of the canvas. and basically change the color of the black outlines to orange. If I want to do it that way. If you want to make this faster, you can make the brush size bigger. Like that. You can do it that way, or you can use the fill tool, which is what I normally use. Fill tool. Oh, hold on. No, that's right. Click on the line work, and there you go. Now all the black outline on this outer part anyways is orange. Let me demonstrate that again. That turned off. There we go. And if you want a shortcut for inking the entire layer of line work, if you just want to turn all the black outlines to some other color, you can use a shortcut on your keyboard by holding shift and then pressing backspace. And that's a shortcut in Krita for using the foreground color, in which case my foreground color is orange, right? Orange. And it'll just fill the entire layer with that foreground color. But because I have alpha turned on, it's not going to turn the entire canvas orange. It's just going to turn all of the line work that I've got on this layer anyways orange. And there we go. Now if I turn the other layer back on, there's an analogous color for the black line work. Of course, you don't have to use this extra step. You could, of course, just do all the line work in orange if you want the line work to be orange anyways. But if you're, say, doing some sort of painting and you want to change some details where you added some inking to that painting, then you could do it this way. Also, if you want to only make certain parts of the line work a specific color, in which case I want these parts to be orange while the rest of it to be magenta, then you could do it this way as well. So it's up to you, but I just found it's really cool. All right, so I think that about does it really. Yeah. So let's go back to the checklist. Whoops. All right, so we got brushes, stabilizers, separation layers, drills for learning to ink and have cleaner inking line work, how to change the line weight in your inking layer or your lines, and how to change the color of those lines without going over it again in some other color. Okay, is that really it? I don't think there's really much more I should explain or show off. Yeah, I think that's about it, really. Are there any other things I should warn about or anything like that? Oh, I guess I should explain this too. So any of the assistant tools, like I said in the last stream, for example, this parallel ruler here, I turn this one on. So if I wanted to use this parallel ruler assistant tool, or assistant rather, and if I wanted to continue using the same inking brush, so the G pen that I'm using right now, just lower it back down, then I still can. Oh, my bad. I just have to make sure to snap to assistance is checked. And there we go. Turn this back to black. And the same brush and settings of that brush will be applied to that assistant tool. So that'll help you with your inking as well if you just need to use the assistant tools, but you're not really sure if you can. Well, you can. The line tool will also work as well if you just don't want to bother with the parallel ruler and you just want to draw straight lines in different directions. Then you can also use the line tool over here and the same brush for inking to achieve the same effect. Let's see, anything else? No, that should be it. Yeah, I think that's about everything as far as inking goes. Yeah, I mean, that's all the advice and information I've got to give. I thought for sure this take a little bit longer, but no, I mean, I think this is adequate. If there's any more information that I didn't go over, or if there's something else that I didn't think about explaining or demonstrating, then I'll post it on my YouTube channel. I'll just do a short video about it. But yeah, that's about it. Okay. So that's pretty much it for this stream then. Not gonna bother making it any longer than it needs to be. Change the background music. I need to edit the track so that it loops naturally. Okay. Alright, well that's the end of this stream then. I don't think there's really any other questions I would have to answer. Inking by itself is not complicated, it's just the fact that you have to have really good eye-to-hand coordination, as well as an understanding of how line weight affects things, affects the composition of your work, how it makes the eye look towards different particular parts of the composition, as well as tricks the eye into thinking that there's depth or an illusion of space and distance. But yeah. Alright then. Well. Let me think. Is there any other announcements I'm gonna make while I'm at this on stream? I do plan on streaming Ninja Gaiden again, probably either later today or tomorrow, because I know that I haven't been playing that. I mean, I haven't been streaming that lately. There's only about 3 more chapters left of that game, so I don't want to delay that any further. I want to have some closure towards that playthrough. And definitely, if I play it on the hardest difficulty setting, I definitely will stream that as well, but probably not immediately after this current playthrough I'm doing. I also have been playing a lot of Fallout New Vegas lately, and I've been wanting to stream that again too. Funny enough, my Fallout stream VODs I've archived on my channel from I think 2 to 3 years ago now at this point. They have the majority of my views on my channel, and I think it's mostly because people want to learn how to make specific builds and how to go about using specific strategies for those builds to play New Vegas. So I think I want to do something like that as well. So I got some ideas on what kind of content I want to do next, but nonetheless though, I don't want to necessarily only do one thing. Like, I don't just want to do nothing but drawing streams or play one particular game and such, because that gets boring real fast. I've tried to do that with speedrunning Psychonauts and I got burnt out. Not to say that I don't like Psychonauts, I still do, and I still like speedrunning the game from time to time, but yeah, I mean, I just can't be bothered to make the same kind of content over and over and over and over and over again. It's just too boring. I know that's what these social media platforms want, but I don't want to provide that. I like variety, I really do. And the content creators that I personally watch, especially the streamers that I watch, they as well do variety streams. Like, they'll do cooking, they'll play different games, sometimes they'll draw, sometimes they'll do some other creative outlet, but they're never really doing the same thing day in and day out. Now, there's just nothing wrong with other streamers or content creators that do that. More power to you. You found what you enjoyed and doing, and you're gonna, you know, you're happy making that kind of content for it. But as for me though, I'm just not like that at all. I know that also makes it easier to market myself to the public, but I mean, to be honest though, I don't think the public really cares about people. I mean, doesn't really care about me in the first place. Something I've learned over the years when it comes to making content is that it's not really about, well, it's not always about the personality of the content creator. Sometimes it really just comes down to what the content creator does, what they're able to produce, you know, as far as the actual content that they make. In my case, I do pretty well with drawings, and I've gotten a lot of attention on Twitter because of it, and I'm really grateful for that. But at the same time though, I've also wanted to do more videos, and I've enjoyed making YouTube poop style videos, comedy based videos with a lot of editing in the past. But as far as doing anything else besides that goes, I mean, that's kind of hard really, because video editing takes a long time. It's a lot of work, and not to say that I only do things to get something out of it. That's not the case. But if I put a lot of effort and time into something that I don't have to do, right? It's just an optional thing I do in my free time, then I better enjoy doing it. At least with making YouTube poop style videos, I can put whatever jokes I want and laugh about it while I'm editing and such. When it comes to doing more specific types of videos where I'm making discussions or I'm talking about this and that, I mean, in my opinion, those are boring. Like, it just makes the process of editing those videos all the more apparent. Just makes it feel like work and nothing else. Now, of course, if the videos are about topics that I personally care about and such, then, you know, I don't have that opinion. But really, I don't want to force myself to work hard for something that's really not going to give me any kind of intrinsic value or extrinsic value. So, but my goal is to make more videos, definitely for YouTube. It's just hard for me to think of a good particular video idea, because once I start something, it's very easy for me to just stop doing it. Again, if it's an optional thing, if it's not something I have to do. Otherwise though, I'm pretty good about committing to projects and ideas, but I've been plenty of project ideas that I've started and then just stopped midway, or just haven't bothered to even get through the brainstorming part. So we'll see. But yeah, those are some of my future plans, and I want to continue doing streams like this and content like this in general, where I'm giving educational content related to drawing, and I'll probably do other educational other topics and subjects for educational content, like cooking, working with my hands as far as using particular tools. I've worked at some hardware stores, and that's how I've learned how to use specific tools, how to do specific things like repair screen doors, work with wood, and I want to be able to show my knowledge as far as doing stuff like that too. So yeah, got some ideas. How soon I'll get to them though, I mean, we'll see. Unfortunately, I'm not really doing this like full-time or anything. I don't even do this part-time like I used to either. So, you know, I never really give like schedules on when I'm going to make content, when I'm going to do this, when I'm going to do that. I tried to do that in the past, and I've always disappointed myself as well as others when it comes to following through with saying that, hey, I'm going to do this at this time. Now, if I tweet that, hey, I'm going to be streaming at this time, then, you know, I'm pretty good about doing that. But as far as like listing out, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this at this particular time of the day, blah, blah, blah. I don't have enough foresight to know that nothing is going to come up preventing me from doing stuff like that. I know other content creators have to deal with the same problem, but nonetheless, too, I found it way too annoying to the point where I've pretty much just stopped making announcements altogether in relation to scheduling. So yeah, I mean, the easiest way to know when I'm doing something and what I'm doing is just following me on Twitter and, you know, following me on my other social media accounts, YouTube channel. I don't know if I'll stream on Twitch again. We'll see. I mean, right now it's looking dicey on Twitch. I got an Instagram, but I just use that for archiving my recent drawings. I still have a DeviantArt as well, but DeviantArt's just been so bad as far as the way the platform's been treating its users that I really don't want to go back. So I don't really have that many other social medias really. It's just YouTube and Twitter for now. I thought about using Newgrounds as well, but Newgrounds is not really a friendly or new user friendly community. Basically, it only caters towards mostly famous content creators and animators. So if you're basically a nobody, you're not going to really get that much interaction with the rest of the community. And that's not to say that, you know, other people owe me their time and attention and all that. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that compared to the interactions you would get on DeviantArt back in the early 2010s, late 2000s, and even on 4chan, on the IC image boards, drawing and art making image boards, artwork critique image boards, Newgrounds isn't really like that. You don't get a whole lot of feedback when you post something, and on top of that though, on 4chan specifically, you're not really posting your work for clout. You're really just posting it for feedback, critiques, etc. Now, yes, there are some users of 4chan, some anons that use 4chan for that reason, but I mean, there's no metrics that you can gain by doing that. You're not going to get any followers etc. There's no analytics to look at, so... Anyways, that's a separate topic of discussion. But yeah, just follow me on Twitter and YouTube to, you know what I'm gonna do next and when. But anyways, that's gonna be it. I'm gonna end the stream now. Alright, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you learned something. That's my ultimate goal for these educational streams. And yeah, see you next stream. Till next time. Peace.